everybody. So, today's broadcast, welcome to Kingdom Thinking. And in today's broadcast, I want to talk about the word new. Yeah. From Jeremiah 1 and 5. And it says, well, I might as well read it verbatim. Verbatim. So, I'm going to be reading this from my New Life Translation Bible. Sometimes I forget what this thing is called. But Jeremiah 1 and 5 from that version says, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. Before you were born, I set you apart and appointed you as my spokesman to the world. Ooh, nice, right? And so when we read this about Jeremiah, it gives us this huge insight into who we are and into our relationship with God. And so I really wanted to talk about that today. I think it's been a little overlooked, and I just wanted to kind of bring it out and discuss it. So when you look up that word new, it's the word yada in Hebrew. And for you scholars out there, it's in the Strong's Exhaustive Concordance at number 3045. Well, this word to new means God knew you. It means to know you, to recognize you. It means to understand you, to have relations of intimate nature with you. It means to be respected, to be known, make oneself known, to cause to know, to be well known, to show, to teach, to be made aware, to make oneself known. Let me go down here a little bit more. It means to perceive, to acknowledge, to consider. It's cunning. It means know for certain, for sure, to understand. It means understood, declared, learned, skilled, taught, aware, discern, feel, advice, answer, appointed. It means to have had respect unto. I love that. It means prognosticate. Oh, this is so good, y'all. So good. I'm excited. And so what God was saying to Jeremiah is before you were even conceived in your mother's womb, before you were birthed on this earth, I had a purpose for you. He said, I understood you. I knew who you were. I perceived you. He said, I had this understanding about you. He says, I acknowledged you. I taught you. I considered you. I understood you. He said, I discerned you. I advised you. I answered you. I appointed you. He said, I prognosticated you. That means to prophesy, is what prognosticate means. But the great thing that I love about that is not only did God do that for Jeremiah, not only did he know Jeremiah, but guess what? Jeremiah knew God. Before he was conceived in his mother's womb, Jeremiah knew God. He taught God. I'm going to get into that. He acknowledged God. He showed God. He understood God. He comprehended God. He was made aware of God. He discerned God. He advised God. He answered God. He was appointed by God. He caused to discern God. He had respect unto God. He perceived God. And he prophesied to God. Just like God did to him, he in turn did to God. There was this ebb and flow, right? So before he was conceived in his mother's womb, God knew him, but he knew God. Even better, before you were conceived in your mother's womb, you knew God, and he knew you. Before you ever got here, before any mistakes were made, before you could understand who your parents were, before the foundations of the world, God knew you and you knew him. God prophesied over you and you prophesied over him. God acknowledged you and you acknowledged him. God spoke over you and you spoke back to him. God, there was this interchanging and there was this substance that kept happening over and over between you and he. Hallelujah. And so God was saying to Jeremiah, I already knew who you were. You know what you talked to God about? You talked to him about your destiny. When you talked to God and you conversed with him and he conversed with you, what you talked about was your destiny. You talked about what you would do on this earth for him. You talked about your assignment and your purpose. Yes. You understood. How can I prove that to you? Well, I sure will. I'm glad you asked. He said, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. Before you were born, I set you apart and appointed you as my spokesman to the world. He's saying to him, I gave you your assignment before you even got here. I want y'all to meditate on that for a minute. He gave you your assignment before you were even born. The seed lies within you. It might be dormant, it might be silent, you might not know what it is, but that does not mean it's not there. All that means is it is ripe for your harvesting. It's there to be cultivated. It's there to be nurtured. It's there to be developed. It's there to know, right? Because that's what was happening. Before you got here, God knew you. You knew him. There was this exchange. There was this interaction. And what he's saying now is when you got here, you forgot. Right? Because we're born into sin and we're shaped in iniquity. And because of that sin nature of the earth, we didn't remember that experience. But he said, have no fear, I'm God. I'm going to make a way. I'm going to make provision for you. And so he sends us Jesus Christ to redeem us, right, from the curse, from that power of sin. And so he releases us once we receive him. And because of that release, he quickens us in our minds, right? Because he tells us, be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. So he begins to transform and renew our minds to this newness and this righteousness that's now there. And because of this new righteousness, now we can perceive God as he perceives us. Now we can understand God as he understands us. And now this exchange that we had before the foundations of the world started, we have again to new life, right? That's why you can pray and ask God for something and then he turns around and gives you the answer. Because now the connection is open again. Now you can hear your God again. Well, I'm here to tell you that the purpose that God has given you, that's on the inside of you, that's been there since before the foundations of the world, is still there. It is still powerful. It is still breathing. God is still speaking to it. God is still prophesying over it because he's saying that which I have purposed shall come to pass. And so when God says, this is what I want to happen, that's what he wants to happen. Now, he says, I will use you if you choose to be used. God knows that if you choose to be used, you will affect this earth. You will complete your mission, your goal, your purpose, the thing he put in you, and you will affect others, right? You will inspire others to fulfill their mission, to complete their destiny. But he will not override your will because he's God. He loves you. He created you. Again, he made you in his image, after his likeness. In his image, in his kingdom, in his likeness, there is no overrunning anything, right? We know what happened when somebody tried to overrun in his kingdom, right? Lucifer got kicked out. So that's not his prescribed way of thinking. God's prescribed way of thinking is, I'm the head. I'm the king of kings. I am the Lord of lords. And because he is the king, He has all rights and authority. Well, then he chose to extend those same rights and authority to us, his little kings on this earth. And with that power, he's given us purpose that's planted on the inside of us to use that purpose for his glory. I'll repeat that. Every single person has a purpose. You are here on this earth for a reason. You had that reason put in you before you were even born. God knew you and you knew him. God perceived you and you perceived him. God understood you and you understood him. And so there was this, in this exchange, you all were prophesying to each other. You all were saying, how do you prophesy to God? So one way to prophesy to God is you declare back to him what he has said to you. So when God says in his word, put me in remembrance of my word, he's saying, go ahead, prophesy to me. When you prophesy, you say what God says. And so you declare what God is thinking. You are agreeing with God. And so when you prophesy back to God, you are in agreement with him. You're saying, God, what you said about my life, what you said about the purpose that's put in me, I agree with you. What you've said about what you've planted in my spirit and in my heart, I agree with you. What you said about the nature and nurture of my love and the love that you have for me, I agree with you. You are prophesying to God. You are giving his words back to him. And we know that his words will not return void, but they will accomplish what they were sent to do. And so when you give God his word concerning you, when you prophesy back to him concerning yourself, what you're saying is, God, I agree with everything you've put in me. I don't care if you're tired. I don't care if you're homeless. I don't care if you're in distress. And even if you're not in your right mind today. That's just today. That don't have nothing to do with the rest of your life. That's just today's outcome. And there's a way to get out of that just today's outcome. One is we choose. We choose to think like God. We choose to understand like God. We choose to perceive like God. And where life has told us nobody loves you, nobody wants to be bothered. And, then we have that experience that cultivates with that and says, yeah, that's right, because this happened to you, right? So I lived in several different homes before I was the age of 18 due to sexual abuse in my home before when I was like a little bitty girl. And so that displaced me. So it's hard for me to have extremely strong family ties. Like sometimes I see families and they're like really, really, they connected. Like they call each other every day and, they going over each other's house every day. And I think it's a wonderful thing. It's just far from me. I can't attach myself to that very strongly because that was not my experience growing up, right? So experience connects itself to you and it'll tell you a whole lot of things. Now, in the past, I was just pretty much, to myself and my kids and my family, and we're going to stay in this inclusive bubble. That's how I felt in my 20s. Okay, y'all, I'm older than that now. I don't think like that anymore because I had to adopt God's way of thinking. And God's way of thinking says, Nitra, I need you to love your neighbor as yourself. I need you to stretch beyond your little nucleus. And I need you to stretch out of that boundary and love somebody else. Meet somebody else's need. When somebody else is in agony, I need you to hear them because you're representing me, because I put something on the inside of you before the foundations of the world, and I need to see that come to pass in the earth so that my purpose can be fulfilled. But he said, if you stay in this, my purpose will never be fulfilled because my purpose is not in there. So his purpose is not in our bubbles. Right? It's not in our own way of thinking. It's not in, well, this is what I want to do, so this is what I'm going to do. That's not where God's purpose is. His purpose is all on the outside of that, I guarantee you. And so as we desire his ways, as we listen to his voice and desire his prescribed way of thinking, And as we, because again, that word is not there to put us in a bondage. It's not there to choke us, right? That word is really there, however, to bring us life, and that more abundantly. That word is there to stretch us beyond ourselves. That word is to give us a new perspective that we couldn't attach ourselves to before because we didn't have anything to go on. And so now his word is there to give us life. And so I just want to encourage you today, right, that before you were even born, God knew you. He had a plan and a purpose for your life. He understood who you were, and he was happy to give you this life everlasting. He was happy to create a purpose for you that would not only bless him and bring him glory, but it would bring you joy. It would bless you beyond your wildest dreams. It would provide financially for you. It would be this substance that was an overflowing package, right? The whole package, the entire works, right? So anybody like the works pizza? I love the pizza with the works. Just put everything on it, right? And so God just gave you this whole entire package. He's given us everything that pertains to life and godliness. So everything that you need on this earth, God has given that. And everything that you need to service God, he's given that too. So he's given you everything that pertains to life, naturally, and everything that pertains to godliness, spiritually. And he's equipped you to do all of that. So anytime that you feel like, oh, I can't get this done or I can't do that, check and see, God, is this what you want me to do? And if it's what you want me to do, sorry about that, guys. If it's what you want me to do, then Lord, help me to do it. Help me to think like you think. Give me your prescribed way of understanding this. Because just like you understood me before the foundations of the world, I want to understand you. And the more you spend time with him, right, the more you talk to him about that, the more you engage him, the more you read his word, the more you go back to that word. Maybe you need another translation. If the one you got isn't working for you, find you another translation. And then talk to him about that. God, what does this mean for me? He loves you with an everlasting love. Never forget that. And so I just wanted to end and let you know to be strong in the Lord and the power of his might. Welcome to Kingdom Thinking, and I want you to like, share, subscribe. I plan to upload once a week. Right now it looks like it will be a Tuesday. We'll see how that goes. Maybe it'll be a Friday. But let me know what kind of topics you'd like to hear about, and share that with me. I'll be sure to accommodate, and I'm excited to talk to you guys. There's so much more that God's been revealing to me that I'm so excited about. I can't wait to share, and I look forward to talking to you again. Thanks.